Hello, I'm Patrick O'Connell, a seven-figure design business owner and founder of ProfitableDesigner.com. Throughout my career, I've constantly heard how crucial it is for designers to perfect their craft, yet my journey has taught me something more profound. True success and profitability come from mastering essential business, marketing, sales, and entrepreneurial fundamentals. Join me on the Profitable Designer Show where we unlock these fundamentals and pave the way for your success. Before we kind of roll into the free-form chat, I suppose, feel free to just
perfect.
provide some context, who are you, and take us through what you do and what you spend most of your time focusing on these days.
Deal. You know me. I'm Kaleb. I can't remember what year I joined the program. 22 maybe. Sounds about right. It's 3 years, maybe. At the time, I was just dipping my toes into trying to get clients. I was actually teaching design at a college. I had finished up a master's degree, so I had all the design knowledge, but none of the business knowledge. And just wanted to be, I'm like many other designers, I think, wanted to have some autonomy, and just to work with awesome clients and do a lot of fun things and get paid what I'm worth to do it. And I think that last one is where coming into the program helped, So I run a agency called Studio Estendo. Everybody asks what the estendo means, and it's Latin for to reveal, which is super nerdy in the theory of aesthetics. Andy Martin Heidegger fans will just nerd out with me a little bit there. But for a long time, I like to talk about what we did as shaping culture through design, and I think that's the Masters of Design focus, coming out of me, the studio art background that I have, the working with students, and I think that is a heart in the eyes kind of feeling towards art and design that I think a lot of designers have. But that's not something that connects with business owners, and that's not what drives commerce or economics, as you well know, and have shown me the way of too. And so join the program and yeah, I figured out at one point, it was I was a really good designer, but I wasn't a good business owner. And just acknowledging that skills gap, changed the network a little bit, to network with people like you and who are like-minded and trying to build a business and not necessarily spend hours and hours picking out a typeface, which I still love to do. But
yeah, what's so take me through the best part about university or college is how pure it is. That's I think what excites a lot of people to go into it. I think if everybody evolves to be, I feel like, a business owner, when they realize that they want to do what they love, but they want time and financial freedom, right? And generally there's an evolution of, I need this, I need a skill. And then it's I need the skill of selling the skill, I suppose. So take me through, was there a particular moment in time where you were oh man, this business acumen that I've got to acquire here? Was there a realization, or were you trying to push in a direction, trying to just rely purely on your craft? Take us through kind of the thought process to that.
Yeah. You're right. In university or colleges, that's the design, it is the purest fundamental. And there was a point where I was in my own grad program, and it was every book that I was reading, every resource that I was consuming, it was done by a designer who was teaching at college. So it was this part of all these culture makers are contributing to the educational standpoint, but they also then the ones who stick around the most also happen to make a lot of money doing it, right? When they're Paul Rand or Armin Hoffman, some of the bigger name, Paula Scher too, to throw in another female name. They're making oodles amount of money doing it, and working with massive clients. And so there has to be some sort of business acumen that they had that I didn't necessarily have just coming out of design school. And I think for for me and for a lot of designers, like having taught designers too, like I see it a lot where it's like some people, they're just happy to not have to worry about their own financial status. And it's like there's a the average is average for a reason, right? It's like comfortable and people can be in it, um, work for their 45 years and then sail off into the sunset, you know? Um, and I think I had bigger desires than that. And I think that I liked the idea of like having some autonomy over that. So like when paying attention to like wanting some autonomy over that and then realizing like the scale of clients that some of these like big time designers were working with, like what I was doing was not a match at all. You know, it was like, oh, I can charge like I don't know how to convince somebody to spend the amount of money that I want to make, nor nor the value I believe myself to bring to the table. Um, and that sort of was where the skills gap was. Is like I think I can make better work, not being directed by some of the people I had as like business owners at that point. So I think that for me, the realization in that, I'm just like talk wandering my way into this. The realization was like there were people who were worse designers than I was, that had better business skills, that were doing the design business and making the design decisions just because they were better at business. And that was where it was for me. It was like, okay, I should get better at business because then I get to make the business decisions and ultimately I get to make better design decisions, even if, you know, regardless of what the client does and doesn't want. Whoever's sort of running the studio gets their final stamp of approval or not approval. I think that's how I wandered into it.
Got it. What and like you used the term autonomy. Like, what does autonomy mean to you?
Um, I think what a great question. There's fun financial autonomy, autonomy over time, autonomy over your schedule, um, autonomy over the design decisions that we get to make. I think all those things go hand in hand, and I think like the feeling of wanting to say like I think this is the right typeface, I don't think that's the right typeface, and this is why, and only having to answer to like the fewer people you have to answer to, the more likely that decision is going to be the final one, which feels good. You know, I think so autonomous that way. Like if I own the studio, then there's no design overhead. Um, who's going to just change that decision? But then also like the scheduling. So I am in Idaho, which is a no-name state on the U.S. map, and my wife's family is in Chicago. This is where I spent all my time design studying. And so it's, you know, when I look at the traditional American 9 to 5 that like my brothers-in-law have, it's like they have like 15 days off, plus like 2 or 3 days for every holiday. So they get 2 vacations a year total, you know, and for my wife to be able to see her family, or for my kids to be able to meet, you know their grandparents who are there, their aunts and uncles who are there, we just need more time than that. So I think there's a time autonomy too that comes with, you know, I am my schedule maker, for better or worse, or my wife is our schedule maker for better or worse. Um, so that falls into the autonomy category for me as well, I think.
Yeah, that was like the only. I basically had like a greater physical distance version of what you had. It was like understanding that, man, my wife's from the UK. We live in Australia. She's
Yeah,
gonna get
yeah.
homesick. She's gonna get
No kidding.
homesick, and she's gonna want to go back.
Right.
And like we have to be able to flexibly move backwards and forwards, and that negates the prospect of climbing up the hierarchy of a company because you lose momentum every time you shift location. Um,
Yeah.
but so like in a way, do you feel like the situation of being coming back to Idaho and then having this kind of constraint of needing to go back to Chicago is actually, in a lot of ways, it's one of the major catalysts to why you've tried to problem solve doing your own thing, I suppose.
Oh, huge. I mean, there was a point where even when we were deciding where to live, is like we were married, and it's like we didn't have a permanent location yet. We're like, okay, well, we could live in Nevada, or we could try to California or Chicago or Idaho. And then we were like, well, if we live in one of our home states, here's my garage opening. She's coming home now. Oh, she realized it. Okay, good. Only half. uh, we were like, we did the math. We're like, okay,
Good
well, if we
that's
live,
awareness by her, by the way. They're like,
yeah. Well, I text her. I always text. I'm like, I'm in the garage, but I need one of those like red recording lights that's sits outside the garage somehow.
yeah.
That would be good. No, so we were like this. We did the math. We're like, okay, we have to either live in Idaho or Chicago. We cut our flights in half. Um, and then it was like, okay, well, if we're gonna fly back and forth, every 2 months, 6 flights to and from is like 2K a piece. So we have to make that much more money every year just to see family, like not even to vacation ourselves really, but just to like go and stay with family. And so that was for sure calculated in the equation of like, can we do this and can we make it happen financially? And where in the world do I find the resources to help me figure that out?
Yeah, it just sounds like your just standards were higher for what needed to happen. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
don't you think that's funny? Like, I joke around. I joke around. Like, I think everybody's like inherently massively capable. It's just there's never enough of a disruption to a comfortable life to want to problem solve beyond it. But like, I was thinking the other day, like, you could take anybody that like is low on confidence or doesn't feel like they're capable of doing much, and I reckon you could abduct them, blindfold them, and then drop them in the center of Africa, and I reckon within 72 hours they'd be back home
yeah,
if you gave them no money, no food, no nothing, because you basically like you fall to your standard. And
sure.
what happens is you get super creative. And I think what happens is if you run into a girlfriend that you turn into a wife, and you've got one kid at least, don't you?
Yeah, just one.
Yeah, just one. It forces the discomfort in like the situations and not being from the same place. It forces an elevated standard where, look, this is going to be really brutal if we can't beat these basic needs of these flights regularly. You know what I mean?
Right.
And then you just have to problem solve to that acceptable standard, I suppose. Um,
Sure. I don't know. I'd push
what,
back and I'd say I think most people would just be comfortable, like if you dropped them in the middle of nowhere with a bottle of water. I think I think most people like find the closest village and then they just chill there. Because it's hard work. Like it's not like what we do is easy, right? Don't belittle like, oh, it's every 2 hours, $1 million business.
yeah, yeah, true.
But
What
but I know what you mean. You're like, there's a little more like fight necessity in in the standard of living, trying to fly to the UK and Australia. And now you're not even in either one, right? You got to fly to both, or you just visit UK from Bali.
Well, we're kind of I don't want to move back to the UK because I'm not fond of the weather, and my wife doesn't want to
Yeah,
move
no
to
kidding.
Australia. So we're kind of stuck in a stalemate. So we basically just span the globe and try to find places that are like halfway in between. Basically, it's a very childish way to kind of settle a debate, basically. But
Yeah, sure.
um, take us through so like so you obviously recognized, look, I need to carve out like a business vehicle that allows me this autonomy. Like, and it's been like a couple of years now. Take us through
take us through kind of the biggest ideas that you feel like are responsible for kind of the success that you've had to this point. Like what
Hmm.
are the big ideas that you feel like, man, if somebody just told me that earlier, I feel like it would have had an insane impact.
Yeah, the one that I feel the most presence of, is sort of just like in communicating with potential clients, is the sort of value exchange, or like how to talk about the value of design instead of the aesthetics of design. And I think when we're taught and like when we're teaching too, design is quite often about the aesthetics of it and some of the psychology. And you spend so much time like learning, what colors make people feel certain ways and why a font is friendly, or how to make an asymmetric composition versus a symmetric one. And I think that like that makes good designers. But for me, I think the translation between like design action and business impact, in articulating that value to business owners, has been the one that I think about most frequently. Um, I think if I was like thinking about it from a long-term investment standpoint, just the starting conversations and sales portion of it, uh, of what we talk about, I think would have the more you do it, it's like a compound interest kind of a thing. I think the more people you talk to, um, the more practice and repetitions you get in with, like, well, I asked a dumb question and that person walked away. So I wish I would have done that, started doing those 20 years ago, because now it would be much easier than it is. And so, you know, like if you said I'm only, a couple years into this program, it's like, oh, if I would have started in 2015 instead, we'd be rolling. Like I'd be in Bali with you with my vacation home.
So you
you
come to
know,
Bali.
we have a list of vacation home spots, and we have a lot of question marks on there. So we might visit someday.
um, yeah, awesome. So take me through like I like that you said like compound interest. So like obviously, like I'm just looking at one of the posts that you put into the uh in Gen 4 into the community, and like what kind of average project value were you working with, like coming into the program versus like where you are now? Because it's like I'm seeing that your post, I'm just looking through it now. You're talking about slimming down an offer and basically recalibrating it and being able to successfully charge $22,000 for it. So like I'd love for you to kind of just expand on what you mean by the compounding. Like I fully understand it, but I love just the fact that you've said that. Kind of tells me you understand that it's not just the binary, are you doing this or not? It's understanding that there's like layers and layers of understanding. And it sounds like you're pretty confident with now being able to communicate your values. So like why are you confident? And like
Hmm.
what do you know that you didn't know?
As much as I'm a designer person, I also have a math-oriented brain, so that helps me connect to business owners quite a bit, especially the good ones. Like I think the real good business owners, they're all about their numbers, forwards and backwards. So when I started the program, I don't know if I had enough clientele to have an average project, but I didn't have anything that was over $3,000. Um, because I think of myself, and I know of other designers, there's like almost you feel guilty because you're like, oh, well, I designed this logo in 15 minutes, or it only took me an hour and I'm going to charge you $3,000. No, I can't do that. And there's like this weird sheepish thing to it. Um, and the way that as you get to 20, a $22,000 package instead, is just like gaining confidence in the value that you provide a business, right? Um, and some of the questions that I ask in the front end of those conversations with business owners have completely changed from like the usual designerly questions like, oh, well, why is your company blue? Like, what web processor do you use on the back end kind of stuff, which are just not valuable at all to their business outcomes. But like revenue questions and like how many clients they currently have, where they're hoping to get to, and how design is going to help bridge that gap. And some of that, it comes, like you said, the confidence in being able to ask those questions and just knowing that people are okay talking about those things when they've signed up to a conversation with you, or by the content that you've been putting out, that if you're talking about those things pretty consistently and they're signing up for a conversation with you, then they have an idea that those are the things you're going to talk about. It's not out of left field. So going from charging, $3,000 or $4,000 for just a logo to, $18,000 or $22,000 packages, understanding the value that the work brings to the client. In that example, it's like we ask questions like, well, how much did you do in revenue last year? And when they say 2 million, or they're like, we did 2 million, then we did 5 million, and then we kind of stagnated at 6 million this year and we want to hit 10. You're like, okay, if I design you a logo that makes you $4 million extra, then $22,000 is nothing, right? It's like a drop in the bucket. And so understanding that you can ask those questions, and then knowing that kind of potential is what you bring just in 365 days, not even this lifetime span of what the design work can contribute to.
Yeah. That's well put. Like I think it takes people a heap of time to figure out that the pricing mechanics is actually a byproduct of the economics of the client's situation.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't ask them the right questions to figure out what's up, then it becomes really hard to understand what they're thinking. But like, you are right, like the real question when somebody comes to you for branding, for example, is we're trying to close a $4 million a year gap. That's the conversation
Right.
they really want to have. So if Kaleb is the person that houses a conversation about the closing of a $4 million gap, and that's the only structural change in the whole sales process, what you can charge is vastly different, because you kind of just get paid based on the caliber of the conversation, and it sounds like you've arrived at it seems like you understand that like entirely, which is awesome. So take me through take me through kind of some of the surprises in maybe before coming into the program, what you think was going to move the needle versus where you actually spend time that you're actually surprised is kind of one of the more higher value activities. Like, is there anywhere that surprised you? Like could you see, like, if somebody was to follow you, the day in the life of you, like, is there parts of what you're doing now that surprise you relative to the old version of you, I suppose?
Giving you a long pause. I'm trying the Steve Jobs style pause. I'm trying to think. The famous, what is his famous pause? Like 38 seconds after he asked the interview question, whatever. No. Yeah, the value turnover is in conversations for sure. Like, I'm an introvert to the core, and I would never on my own accord choose to walk into any conversation with anybody who's not blood or just as close related to me. And that as a value output is much higher, even if it's just, I think we use Alex Hormozy a lot, or have in the past. And there's the difference between just projecting to an audience and having a conversation with one person, And I have no problem like projecting aloud to an audience on social media because you can just generally be pretty faceless. But the conversion is in the one-on-one conversations or when people start to message you or we start to message them back. So that would surprise a young, even more introverted Caleb for sure.
Interesting.
I know. The other thing is like nobody cares about the work at some juncture. Like there's so many designers who make such good work and they're at some juncture they're all really close in caliber of design work. That there are like really subtle nuances, but if you're talking about business economics, somebody who's interested in business economics will be reaching out to you versus somebody who's a hobbyist or not. And I think that's sort of a difference maker for me. Just like I also a young Caleb tried to do a little podcast that was like little design tips. I was like, I'll drive clients because they'll have questions about design, and then they'll reach out, and they were like little design tips, and it was like the worst thing I could have ever published. This is like just an uninteresting, but it also answers just all the wrong questions. Like the market, like the clients that I was working or wanted to work with didn't have the questions that I was giving answers to. And so a lot of my messaging and the content I make tries to answer the larger scale questions, the business driving questions, more so than the designerly questions that designers have and designers like to talk about really easily, I think.
What so that brings up kind of the cool area, like, so you pretty regularly podcast, obviously. Like
Trying to.
what, like, take us through the benefits. Like obviously there's the pure marketing benefit of a podcast in that like there's a element of virality, like it does organically increase the I suppose the reach of your business and who becomes aware of you. But like take us through like the leverage that you've kind of experienced with that, and do you have clients that come to you through the podcast, and like how like explain or like try to describe the change in energy, because I feel a massive change in energy. Like people that come through the podcast for Profitable Designer, it's like it's a completely different energy of person to somebody that's just seeing your page for the first time. Are you experiencing that as well?
For sure, 100%. So years and years ago, probably 2014, I read this book called Content Inc. And they were like the first people to explore blogging at volume and then bring people together over the content that they were blogging about. And basically this guy, like way back in early 2000s, figured out like how to make like strategies of making content and then just repurposing it all over the place. Like you're seeing now, like more and more people are like a Joe Rogan podcast shows up freaking everywhere because he has a 6-hour long podcast that he repurposes, a million different ways every single time. There's a video version, there's an audio version, there's video clips, there's blog posts. And so I read that a long, long time ago, and I should have put it into action sooner also. But some of that is similar of like, how can I make content that's smart, but can be repurposed over and over, and also things that are interesting to me. Like I don't want to bang my head against the wall. That's part of the reason I started a design studio instead of working for somebody else doing monkey wrench tasks. Although a lot of it is monkey wrench tasks. Like editing a podcast is not the funnest thing I've ever done. But like putting out that kind of content like poises you as expert, right? So when I started some of the like short videos, I started making short videos because they felt like, at least recently, they felt like less effort for a test, right? And I pretty much view each one as a test. It's like, and when I first started making them, it'd take like 2.5 hours or 3 hours to make a short video. And now I can make a pretty well edited one, pretty well scripted one in like 30 minutes. And that feels pretty good. And then after I got pretty quick at those, you know, some do well and some do awful. I tried batch recording and I didn't really love the batch recording ones. Although they're like sort of good back burner content. And then I had always just like,
it's hard to put heart and soul into batch content
yeah,
production, isn't it?
big time.
Like it feels like it's the difference between your mum's cooking and a burger from McDonald's. It just like, it's absent of love, isn't it?
Yeah. It's so tough. And it's like you have energy for the first one. Then like the fifth one, you're like, okay, I'm going to say, okay, yeah, okay. And you're like, oh, you shake it out and then you try to crank out the next one. So I didn't love, and I also didn't love the iteration process because it's like you could record, you know, 10 videos in no time, but then it would take you 3 weeks to publish all those videos. And it's like you'd be doing the second, you know, the third or fourth post of a video, and they're not performing well. And so you kind of know that the next 7 are also not going to perform well. So all that effort was more or less wasted anyway. So I like the sort of when you have energy to record some, to like you can batch it that way, but not necessarily as batched. And then I sort of wrap some of that into like I said, a short form brand reviews, because I was on LinkedIn a ton. That's where a lot of my clients are, the ones that I've been working with. And the design community is like really funny on LinkedIn. It's like they're super opinionated, but also like no one is actually a high tier business owner who's commenting on that kind of stuff. So it always felt like the opinions of, it was just like the same conversations that designers are always having. It's like, I can't believe Walmart picked that ugly typeface, or why would they even pay for a rebrand? Like they made it thicker. Oh, Command B for bold, you know? And so at some point it's like, okay, no, like I started making videos about why I think it would be a great design from a business standpoint. You know, it's like, actually they don't want to spend $2 billion replacing the signs out front of their store if they can make 2 billion more by changing the blue in their app, right? Like they're a revenue generating machine. They're worried about revenue. And so I started to make brand critiques from that point of view, first short form and then long form, because I think that as with all this kind of content, I think there's a space for long form content that people like to consume, especially from people that you can just call up on a Monday evening and have a chat with, that feel like real people and don't feel like, you know, glass house celebrities that you just can't touch, right?
That's such a like a refreshing kind of angle to play, that like you see all of these kind of designers very easily hop on the bandwagon of the next big Fortune 500's rebrand, and they're having a conversation about, I mean, from a business standpoint, nothing.
No,
and
never.
It's from a design standpoint, it's massive. But the issue is that the market that are going to give you money don't value that conversation, whereas they value the economic reality as to why Walmart only pivoted ever so slightly. Because you're exactly right. The costs to logistically change all of the assets, they're not going to get a greater return than that, because people's buying decision doesn't come down to the logo. You know what I mean? I'm sure it has like a 1% impact, but the issue is that it's vastly untraceable, like the impact that something like that can have. But yeah, I think that's such a good angle to kind of market from. Um, and it seems that, yeah, the most important thing with content is that you come up with unique ideas that you've never seen before. You try to push them and rework them and kind of bring your own kind of perspective to them. That's where the magic is, isn't it? So like,
Yeah.
do you feel like, is there like content creators that you that you admire, where you're kind of like taking DNA from them and other kind of inspirations, and you're kind of fusing them in together? Or like, how do you see your content? Like
Yeah, for sure.
is it a byproduct of what you're experiencing? Like, how do you see it?
It's for sure a byproduct of what you're seeing, but also I think like the there's not necessarily like a caliber, like a baseline caliber of production value that adds any value to a ton of value, I should say, to content. You know, I think that it is the world of content is opened up enough that it can be published in any form or fashion. And if it has value, then people are going to be attracted to it. There is something to be said about if it's easily consumable, but people will engage with something that has value. I am for sure always aggregating creators that are doing cool things or have a perspective framework or ways that they talk about their own stuff that I find interesting. I'd love to have a better studio than a 6-foot square corner of my garage, but it does. I also like realistically a $25,000 studio won't make my content any better either. So there are people like Jay Klaus, I think teaches people how to be creators. A lot of his stuff is really good, and he has some things I want. He did an interview with Patty Galloway, who's been a YouTube creator and worked on big YouTube channels, and I think just that interview in itself about like packaging content is 100% worth it. There's a video creation agency called Chaos Brands or Chaos Visuals, K.OS Visuals. And I follow that guy, their owner. I think he goes by O. I have no idea how to pronounce his name for real. I follow his stuff because he's, following video people makes sense because they're trying to make content about how to make videos. And then a couple other marketers that have like really beautiful deep dives just into their own echelons of content. It's like a sneaker deep, and it's like all he does is talk about sneakers, but it's like the deepest, most historic dives, and you're like the footage that he uses and the way he nerds out about one thing always seems so interesting. And I'm like, I think if I nerd, that's part of like what leads into the brand stuff is like I'm so nerdy about brands, but having taught and like developed a framework for critique in a university setting for my students and for the department, applying those to video content makes it so much different than the kind of content that you see other designers when they just, shit post about Walmart's nuanced rebrand, or OpenAI's or Spotify's or whoever else. And I would say too about like, none of it is like crazy overcalculated. Like I didn't sit down for 120 hours and like brainstorm exactly what was going to happen. Like, okay, I need to use these shots from this guy and I need to script like that guy. And then I need to edit like these two people. But it's just been like a slow evolving thing. I think in our group, if you probably read that post about sharing that Walmart one, it's like, that's like video 120 or something that I've made, like something crazy, some crazy amount. And so it gets there eventually. Like, it's not like my first one was a banger. In fact, my first ones are awful. And I'm like constantly like, can I just get that off of Pinterest or wherever it's at? You just sort of like get there through practice, like through doing the reps, And I think that's where most people they're afraid of the first one. It's like you think you have to make the first one go viral or you're dead in the water. And it's not true. Like no content creator you ever talk to will say that, right? You're like putting the first stone in what will eventually build up to be a mountain, but you have to put the first stone there before you get the second stone, and then just wheelbarrows and wheelbarrows of stones until you have a hill to stand on, you know?
Yeah. And you kind of just, like, the genius to it is like, it's understanding that the information to get better is it's after the 20th stone when you put it down and you see what it does, and then
Right.
after the 100th. But that's what makes you better is experiencing the information that is a byproduct of doing stuff. And I think
Right.
it's easy for people to kind of never get started because they think they need to know more than they do. Whereas you just have to do, and then you figure out how to know, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I think Mr. Beast talks about that a lot, right? Like Mr. Beast is the YouTube creator that somehow everybody who's 30 years or under knows. And he talks about that all the time. He's like, he would, even if he, knowing everything that he knows now, made a YouTube video on a new channel, like it would get 5 views and that's it. And he's just made thousands and thousands of videos, and putting that in is what helps. Sorry, you.
Yeah. No,
Question.
I was gonna we'll probably have to wrap up because we've got the group call coming up. But like just as like a final question, like what does 2025 look like for you? Like what are you trying to build towards for the rest of the year to feel like you've really kicked some ass?
Mm-hmm. I mean, I'd love to book about 6 more clients like that one I did at the beginning of the year. And I know a lot of that just comes with time and with reaching out. You know, that contact reached out to me in October of 24 with the messages like, hey, been loving your content, would love to chat about this business move I have some coming up. And then we didn't schedule a meeting for another month. And then he was like, oh, well, I'm moving positions at the end of November, so I'd love to chat then. And then you'd like have a chat at the end of November, and he's like, well, I won't be, I want to get a feel for what's going on in this company. And then January 2, first work day of the year, he's on a call and he's like, all right, how do we get started? So investing in those things that are going to snowball a lot, I think that's always something that's been important to me, is like paying attention to there are certain things you can put the pedal on. You can put your foot on the pedal for things that will happen really quickly, but then fizzle out. And there are things that you can invest in that will contribute, bigger results longer down the line. So still first quarter, still on the long results one, but also trying to start more conversations with people who have been watching all the LinkedIn content and just not taking action quite yet. Trying to get them to take more action. That's sort of the balance, right?
Yeah, totally. Well, let's over the next couple of weeks, let's talk about how to kind of engineer like a higher level of action from everybody that's on there, because it's like you've done all the hard work to kind of sow a heap of seeds, and what becomes important next is having like a deliberate harvesting method.
Sure.
Take advantage of all of the effort, So, but yeah, Kaleb, thank you for the time, sharing your ideas and insights. It's been greatly appreciated.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm long-winded. I'm giving you a longer episode. Just chop it up into like 1,000 YouTube shorts for us.
Yeah. Well, look, we'll feed it into some stuff, but dude, that was awesome. Like, yeah, that's kind of the gold, is in just letting people rant in a direction, because like you just want to kind of hear how that's the value is in how people are shifting their thinking and what they believe, so super valuable.
Yeah.
Awesome,
Cool.
man. Well, thank you for taking the time. If you're about for like the next 10 minutes, I can take you through potentially what to do to engineer a bit more action for people in the first part of the Zoom call, if you like.
Oh yeah, I'm ready.
That's it. Oh,
Let's
go
jump.
through that. Yeah. I'll see you back on that Zoom.
Yeah, deal.
Awesome, man. Cool. Greatly
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Patrick.